Yeah. Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
We can see you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're live, but I'm just going to let the Zoom catch up. Sometimes it seems like it lets people in very slowly, but all right. Well, keeps populating. All right, well, they can miss the roll call. So calling to order our regular board meeting of Tuesday, May 24th. Can we get a roll call, please?
Student trustee Dana.
Here.
Student trustee Lira. Absent for the record. Trustee Boyd.
Here.
Trustee Davidson. Trustee Davidson. I don't see her. Okay. Trustee Doss. Trustee Doss.
I see his screen up.
I see him too. I'll come back, call his name again. Vice President Zoran is absent.
She's still.
Okay. President Hinckley.
I am here.
You are here. Superintendent Wells.
Here.
And Trustee Doss.
I guess we can move on. We can circle back. He's here.
Well, but we need to hear from him. Otherwise, we don't have a quorum to start the meeting.
Oh, okay. Let me see what I can do.
Okay.
All right. We have a quorum now. Trustee, can you call Trustee Davidson's name again?
Yes, we just did roll call. Trustee Davidson, here.
Yes, I'm here. It booted me out of being logged into the Zoom for this. I'm sorry. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, great. So, sorry, that was our call to order, our roll call. And our second item is normally the Pledge of Allegiance, but I actually want to first make a different kind of statement, partly at the request of Superintendent Wells. Today has been a hard day for a lot of people in the world. Well, every day feels hard sometimes, but today, every time I have checked the headline, the number is going up. As many as 19 children were shot to death in their elementary school in Texas, and along with a teacher. And I think many of us remember my 16-year-old was in first grade in 2012 when 26 people were shot in Sandy Hook in their school, and they would be in 10th grade like my son now. And we also unfortunately had a student this morning, as the community knows, who was assaulted on their way to school this morning. So I would just like to ask that we hold a space for a moment at the beginning of this meeting before we start, especially a meeting that is focused on safety at our schools, and just spend a moment thinking about the families who have sent kids off to school this morning and will not see those children again. Sorry, just take a moment to regroup before we start this meeting. So I'm going to turn my camera off for a minute, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes. Okay, so I just want to thank this community too for being amazing and for caring for our students, and know that we as a district are always, you know, thinking about students first and keeping how we can keep our students safe. And just hearts out to everyone for whom this is additional, I think for all of us, additional trauma on top of racially motivated mass shooting just last week. And, you know, that we are hoping that our country is on a path to becoming a place where we are no longer experiencing this level of violence. So with that, I will now move on to the second part of our agenda, which is to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, which for me is an aspirational pledge that our country will live up to the values that this community, I think, it holds so dear. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I know Trustee Lyra is not here with us tonight because they are receiving an award in Los Angeles. So we are delighted for them, but it means we have one fewer person to read our mission and vision statement. So Trustee Dana, we already made you read this when you're not feeling that well. So maybe the board, are you okay?
I'm fine,
Right,
yeah.
You do the whole thing, you go for it.
All right, as President Hinckley said, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. I'm not feeling very well, so my camera will be off this meeting, but I am here. Anyways, the mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student. Our meeting norms are as follows. 1, maintain a focus on what is best for our students. 2, ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. 3, endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's beliefs in what is best for students. And 4, make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind while others are allowed to express their own points of view, even if one disagrees.
Great, thank you. There was no action taken in closed session tonight. We need a motion to approve our agenda. I understand that we are you would like us to approve the agenda without the spotlight. Is that still the case?
That's the case. Item number 6.6-A.
Thank you. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item 6A.
I move that we approve the agenda with the removal of item 6A.
Second.
Student Trustee Dana,
Yes.
Trustee Lyra is absent. Trustee Doss,
Yes.
Vice President Thoron is absent. President Hinckley,
Yes.
Trustee Boyd,
Yes.
and Trustee Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. The agenda is passed unanimously. And so without our spotlight, we will skip to our recognitions. And our first recognition is resolution number 2021-22-31, proclaiming June 2022 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual, agender, LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. And This was completely prepared by Vice President Duran. I will take absolutely zero credit for this. I am very sorry that she is too ill to be here, but I'm also very excited to be able to present this instead of her. So a joy to help bring this forward, but please give her all the credit for the work. So as the backup says, I believe celebrated this for the first time last year. I think that was the first year we had done it. And the purpose is to adopt this resolution to proclaim June 2022 as this month. Often this means that we fly the Pride flag for the month of June. So we hope to do that for that last week of school. And I don't know if she wanted folks to read the backup out loud, or if we're bringing, if we can have some of the readers help us with the backup and then do the resolution. Oh, you have the backup up. So now, do we have everyone brought in? I see Autumn.
Yes,
Britt,
President Hinckley.
Catherine. Okay, great. Thank you.
Here.
So without knowing how Vice President Duran intended to do this, and I think Trustee Dana, she was also hoping you could read part of this. So maybe I'll ask you to start with the first paragraph of the background information, and then you can hand it off to our other readers.
Okay, great. Sounds good. All right. LGBTQIA plus rights are human rights. The story of America's LGBTQIA plus community is the story of our parents and children, our friends and neighbors, and ourselves. It is a story about the struggle to realize that all people should live with dignity and fairness. And it is the story of resilience in the face of that struggle and of celebrating the beauty of the LGBTQIA communities. Each June, we celebrate and commemorate the courageous individuals who have fought for equality for the LGBTQIA plus people. And I'll pass it on to Autumn.
Okay. On June 28, 1969, a routine police raid of a gay bar called Stonewall Inn sparked the fire that fueled the first wave of the gay pride movement in New York City. That night, brave people led by Black and Latinx transgender women said, "Enough is enough." Stonewall became a symbol of resistance to social and political discrimination that would inspire solidarity among LGBTQIA plus groups for decades. However, it took half a century before the Supreme Court ruled on June 26, 2015, that same-sex couples have a constitutional right to marry. I'm not sure who to pass it on to.
How about Britt?
Sure. The struggle continues today, with many LGBTQIA people in the United States facing disparities in employment, education, and housing. LGBTQIA plus people, and in particular transgender individuals, face a disproportionately higher risk of becoming victims of violent hate crimes and have been targeted in acts of mass violence. LGBTQIA plus youth are being targeted by divisive policies in various states across the nation. In particular, transgender youth are the subject of many proposed bills to restrict their access to healthcare, and bullying toward LGBTQIA plus youth. The 2017 to 2019 California School Climate, Health, and Learning Surveys found that middle and high school students in Alameda County that identified as transgender or gay, lesbian, or bisexual were twice as likely to have been harassed or bullied in the past year than their cisgender or straight peers. And I'll pass it on to Catherine. Or Melissa. Sorry, Principal Poole.
No worries.
Okay.
It's all good. Oh, Catherine, go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right, Principal Poole. The fight for dignity and equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, intersex, and agender, asexual plus people is reflected in the tireless dedication of advocates and allies who strive to forge a more inclusive society. They have demanded equal treatment under our laws, from our courts, and in our politics. This month, we reflect on all that they have done and pledge to create and maintain a positive environment for our LGBTQIA+ students and community members.
Great. So Principal Poole, if you want to start, introduce the resolution, that'd be great.
Absolutely, happy to. So this is Resolution 2021-2231, proclaiming June 2022 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual agender, which is LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. Whereas Albany Unified School District, AUSD, promotes diversity as one of its basic tenets and fosters diversity of staff and curriculum. And whereas AUSD policies require the protection of LGBTQIA+ students and staff against harassment, physical violence, or the threat of such. And whereas the lack of awareness and understanding of issues facing LGBTQIA+ children and youth has contributed to a higher rate of isolation, depression, and suicidal ideations or attempts. And here I hand it off. Yeah.
Whereas education regarding LGBTQIA+ issues increases understanding and cultivates acceptance of and respect for LGBTQIA+ youth and community. And whereas studies have shown that a positive school climate in which all LGBTQIA+ students are supported for being who they are is an important factor in decreasing suicidality and depression among LGBTQIA+ students. And whereas AUSD recognizes that the most vulnerable members of the LGBTQIA+ community are the youth in TK through 12 schools, and that they need to feel a sense of belonging at every school site. And passing this off to Britt.
The voices of LGBTQIA+, and I just scrolled beyond where I could see it.
Should still be
sorry.
that top part. That's okay.
I know. I have the video blocking people. Whereas the voices of LGBTQIA+ students need to be heard in the district. And whereas June provides an opportunity for AUSD schools to honor the work of the LGBTQIA+ people to achieve equal justice, equal opportunity, and equal rights, and celebrate the diversity of LGBTQIA+ members in our community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Albany Unified School District Governing Board of Education proclaims June 2022 lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, intersex, and asexual agender, or LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. Encourages all district schools to observe this occasion with the appropriate instructional activities and will fly a rainbow flag at each school. Within AUSD throughout the month of June to signify support for our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and agender asexual community.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for reading that. And before we move on to any comments, I will take a motion to pass the resolution.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve resolution number 2021-2231, proclaiming June 2022 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual / agender LGBTQIA+ Pride Month.
A second.
Sorry about that. Student trustee Dana?
Yes.
Student trustee Lira is absent. President Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Boyd?
Yes.
Trustee Davidson?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
And for the record, Vice President Duran is absent. Great.
Great, thank you. The resolution passes unanimously, and thanks again to Vice President Duran for putting it together and for bringing this to us last year for the first time, and to all of our guests for reading it. And hopefully some folks got to see the rainbow chalking that was done outside AHS/Marin. I don't know if it's still there. I haven't seen it since Sunday. Still would love to see if the city is willing to make that a sort of permanent street marker. But in the meantime, we will have the flags go up on June 1st. And thank you all for being here. I don't know if there are other board members that want to comment before we move on. Yeah, Trustee Boyd.
I'll just say thank you to, I guess, Vice President Duran in her absence for writing this resolution, and for those who were here today to read it for us, and say how grateful I am to be in this district and to be raising my children in this district where, while recognizing that there's still a great deal of progress that needs to be made, my children can, you know, come to school in different colors of the rainbow and have a speech made by a non-binary person who's telling them that they can be any combination of anything that they want to be, and where people can feel hopefully supported and seen. So, and to recognize how fortunate we are to be alive in this time where just during the course of my life, there's been so much progress made, which is not to say that we don't have so much more progress that still needs to come, but in a fairly short period of time to really see change in what jokes are made and what rights are valid and how our kids can present as they go to school, and the importance of announcing pronouns and all of those. I'm grateful for those who have taught me and helped me to learn, and for those who are so brave and push the boundaries in our society so that we can move in a more positive direction. Thank everyone for being here and being out and being seen and being proud to be a part of this and to read this and to help us all to be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Boyd. You always speak our conscience so eloquently. All right, well, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. This was a really joyous occasion last year to do this for the first time, and felt very momentous and feels equally momentous today. I'm just sorry Vice President Duran can't be here to celebrate. So thank you all. And we look forward to celebrating all month. And we have a second recognition tonight. Sorry, Trustee Doss, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, I have my co-presenter here, and we just wanted to thank everybody who worked on this, especially Vice President Duran for all her work on this. And I know that sometimes it can be easier, and then sometimes it could be, you know, a really tough road to living your truth. And I appreciate the courage that everybody tonight has shown, you know, throughout their time in the district. And I appreciate the patience that has been shown as individuals move forward on their journey, especially our student board members. I know sometimes they have to like close their eyes and take a deep breath at some of the things that they hear and that happens. But they take it with grace and they really exemplify, you know, everything that we're trying to, you know, kind of put forward here at Albany, and that's definitely, you know, appreciated. So again, thank everybody for being here tonight and for everything that was said. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Doss. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. So now we will move on to our second recognition for tonight, which is recognizing our retiring employees. And I will hand it, I think, to Superintendent Wells.
Thank you, President Hinckley. I would hand this off to our Chief Human Resource Officer, who was started off, and I think I may end it.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the time of year where we are celebrating a bittersweet occurrence that happens annually, and that's where we are both thanking and bidding farewell to our employees who are retiring. And this year, we have a number of employees that are retiring. But one of the things that we do in HR is that we do reach out to our retirees individually and invite them to come to a board meeting if they're interested, to be recognized. And not everyone feels comfortable doing that. But then we also ask for permission to be allowed to say a few words about them. And so you may have known of someone who's retiring, but if I don't mention them tonight, it's because I'm honoring their wishes, okay? So tonight we are going to say a little bit about Miss Barbara Lewitt. Barbara has been an incredible gift to Albany Middle School. She has been a library technician for 22 years. She takes the time to get to know students and their interests and uses that knowledge to match them well with books of interest. Over the years, she's matched hundreds of students with hundreds of books. She has also been the AMS yearbook coordinator for the past 17 years, creating amazing, lasting memories for our students. She has created for AMS students a home in the AMS library where hundreds of students feel welcome and wrapped around. And we're going to be forever grateful to Miss Barbara Lewitt, and we wish her the very best. Another one of our staff who's leaving us at the end of this year is Miss Kelly Stoddard. So please join me in extending best wishes to Kelly Stoddard, who is retiring from her position as a special education teacher in the mild to moderate program at the end of this year. It's with a heavy heart, but warm wishes that we announce the retirement of Miss Stoddard. She has been an esteemed member of the AUSD community and Department of Special Education since 2017-18. And she has worked both at the elementary and the high school level throughout her tenure with AUSD. She's worked with a wide range of diverse student learners and has brought invaluable support to them throughout the years and building their skills to be independent and confident. She has consistently demonstrated an impressive level of enthusiasm, professionalism, collaboration, leadership, and compassion for students and the educational process. Ms. Stoddard has carried out her responsibilities with efficacy, pride, and with a consistent focus on students. What I have found most impressive with Ms. Stoddard is her ability to connect, guide, and work with her students in a professional manner while still holding the line of authority and managing the balance of fostering independence. She establishes authentic partnerships with her students toward her learning objectives in her classes and differentiates her instruction based on student needs. The impact of Ms. Stoddard's relationship and case management role with her students is remarkable. She will be truly missed by her students and colleagues in AUSD. While we are sad to see her leave AUSD, we are excited for her in her next chapter of retirement. Thank you, Ms. Stoddard, for your commitment and dedication to our students and community. Our next retiree, I am going to allow Ms. Principal Reineuler to introduce. Go ahead, Principal Reineuler.
Hi, everyone. I am just amazingly honored to be able to speak of librarian Mare Staten, who I have had the privilege of being her principal at Cornell School. But many people may not know that Ms. Staten and I go way back to when we were partner teachers at Marin School many, many years ago. To have her as a trusted friend and colleague over the years has been a great experience. She is so clear in her convictions, such an amazing resource for students, an amazing advocate for literacy, and she's there for us at Cornell when we need a teacher in charge. there's some other roles that she's played in the district besides being librarian, third grade teacher, fifth grade teacher for many years. She is also a current family member, grandmother of one of our Cornell students right now. And that is a really wonderful to see her in that role. And she was what they used to call BITSA mentor, now called TIPS. She and I were BITSA mentors together. We used to travel over to Pleasant Hill together, and she has mentored so many of our teachers over the years, and they are very, very lucky to have her guide them and help them to become excellent teachers, because she was certainly one of those. And last but not least, I have to say, you may not know that in the summers every year for many, many, many years, librarian Mayor Staten is a park ranger. She travels all around the country. She has been in Mount Rainier. She's been in Washington, D.C. She's been in so many different parks, and that's what she does in the summer. And she always brings wonderful things back to teach us all. She has for many years. She is a scientist and an egalitarian and a humanitarian and an amazing, amazing teacher. And I am so pleased and honored to be able to give her the send-off that she deserves. Thank you so much, Mayor, for everything that you've done over the years for the students of Albany Unified. You deserve everything. You're great. We're going to miss you a whole lot at Cornell.
Hold on, Principal Reineuler. She shared with me that she's going to come back and help Cornell out when they need, with subbing and any other things that they may need, because she loves this school deeply. And she's a special person. So thank you for that introduction.
Yes, and when we get later to the school safety plans, some people may not know, but Mayor Staten is the premier school safety lead in this that I have ever seen. She has led Cornell so beautifully over the years, and the Cornell Safety Plan is much attributed to her leadership and her vision of safety at a school. So that's another role. She's a dynamic Renaissance woman, that Mayor Staten. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Principal Reineuler. And finally, to introduce our last retiree, Dr. Wells.
Wow. This one goes over a span of 4 decades, but been in the district for 29 years. It's been at every level as a teacher, principal, administrator, executive director, and acting superintendent when I've been out. Just been an amazing educator. The hole that she's going to leave in Albany is not going to be filled overnight. You guys know her recently as the Chief COVID Liaison Expert, who was responsible for leading us through COVID and still leading us, responsible for making sure the classrooms stayed open and the schools stayed open by making sure we practice safe protocols in the area of COVID. And just what we would call in the military, a Johnny on the spot. When principals or teachers call, she's right there. It's not just a phone call. She comes and visit. She visits all the schools on a regular basis, check in with how people are doing. Responsible for bringing in and creating a kind of infrastructure that we didn't know other people were looking at us and playing copycat. And that was very flattering. I didn't know Piedmont was looking at us and copying. I didn't realize until later that Berkeley was doing the same thing in West Contra, looking at Alexio's work and mimicking it because it was good for all school districts. This one is going to be very hard because it's a leadership position that led. They saw a hole and they filled it. When COVID hit, she didn't run from it, she ran to it. And she said, what can I do to serve? I want to help. I miss already her every board meeting COVID update. If you notice, 2 board meetings ago, we stopped doing that. And that one I just missed because I can always get an update, even if it was last minute, on what's happening, the trends, where they're going. I can't say enough about this person. I was blessed enough to have the opportunity to work with her for the last 3 years. I've learned to admire her even more than I did when I recruited her to the district office. The board charged me with go out and recruit the best and the brightest. And sometimes when you got to go recruit the best and the brightest, you don't have time to say, hey, go through an interview. We know your work. That is kind of disrespectful, but it's respectful when you say, hey, we want you on our team. Will you join us? And she said, yes, sir, I will join and I will serve at the optimal level. And she exceeded that level. And so I'm going to be introduced to all of you guys, a person who's going out the way they want to, the way they ought to, the way we all admire her. And that's our very own Executive Director, Alexia Ritchie.
I appreciate the kind words, Dr. Wells and President Hinckley and board members who are with us today. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve this district since 1993. Again, an honor to have worked with every single school program except the pool. So you're welcome to call just in case you need a sub, but I vow to be there to the end if ever Albany needs me again. So again, thank you all for your continued support of our students, of our staff members, of our school leaders, of our community members. Albany is a very special place, near and dear to my heart. My 2 students went through the district. My husband was a special education teacher for 14 years at Albany Middle School. Our family has dedicated our lives to Albany. You have repaid us tenfold. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.
Oh, did I see pom-poms? Oh my goodness. Wow, how neat. I love this place. Oh my God.
I appreciate that, team. Thank you.
Red, white, and blue pom-poms too. Perfect. And also, I think the pool is pretty much always hiring. So if you want to just tick that box off, I think you could do it. So I'm not going to take up all the airtime. So I just want to make sure, was that the last retiree before we open up to comments?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And thank you to Ms. Staten who left, but just want to honor all the retirees, but I will also open it up for board comments. Go ahead, Trustee Doss.
Well, first, congratulations to all the retirees. That's, it's amazing to, put in the time and, work really hard and then, be able to, retire from somewhere. It takes a lot of commitment to stay in one place and, with all the fluctuation, all the different things happening, it's even more difficult now, than it was, in previous years. But I wanted to, and I think she knows this is coming, but I wanted to take a moment to really recognize Director Ritchie. Our journey started a really, really long time ago when I was a high school student. I'm not sure, maybe she has a time machine because she looked just as young back then as she does now. I don't know how she does it, but amazing. But I remember being a high school student and I remember kind of just wandering around and not really feeling like I had a place. And just having like a lot of questions and, and I remember Alexia taking an interest in me and actually caring about what classes I had and what I was doing and, what my goals were, where I wanted to see myself or what I wanted to accomplish during my time at Albany High. And she didn't have to do that. I wasn't in the McGregor program. I wasn't like assigned to her or anything like that. She just saw a young person, and I think she saw more potential in me than I saw in myself. And she talked to me and helped me to, harness that. And I think I accredit a lot of my success at, Albany High to Alexia just, caring and giving a hoot about one student. But I imagine there's thousands of students who feel the same way, who've had that experience, with Alexia. So I thank you for taking that time all those years ago. And I appreciate, all the things that you've done, not only for me, but for all the thousands of other students that you've helped along the way. And Albany is lucky to have you for all these years. And so, but I know that your family will be happy to have you back and have that extra time to be able to, enjoy, and celebrate, a job well done. So you'll be missed, and I'm really sad you're leaving, but thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you, Trustee Doss. I appreciate that.
Trustee Boyd.
So yes, congratulations to everyone being recognized. I can only dream of one day being in a position in my life when I can retire. It seems like it'll be really wonderful, and I salute everyone who is being honored. To say really quickly about Executive Director Ritchie, mostly things that she already knows, but my time with her doesn't go back as long as Trustee Doss, but it does go back to when my now 7th grader was starting kindergarten at Marin, and we were approached by the principal of Marin, who was a woman of color. And I will say that representation does matter. And when my mother and I met Ms. Ritchie and understood that this was the woman who was going to be leading the elementary school where my little girl was going to be there, in addition to all of the great qualities and composure and competence and excellence that she brought, it was really wonderful to be able to see that diversity and to feel that welcome right off the bat. And watching her move into the lead position at Albany High School at a time where leadership and an understanding of diversity and a championing of diversity issues was so crucial for that high school, for the students there, for our entire community. And then watching her step into this role and become the COVID liaison and have to be a scientist and an epidemiologist and somebody who understood all of these acronyms and test names and things that I had never heard of, and most of us never needed to know anything about, and to become not just have a touching familiarity, but to become an expert in these things and to do it with such grace and composure and poise, even on some really difficult meetings. It was a masterclass for me in how to conduct yourself and how to move through difficult situations with intelligence and composure and eloquence and grace. I appreciate having been able to learn from you. It's been an honor to serve at the time that you are serving. I wish you all the very best. It is well earned. Hopefully a little rest and relaxation, some cooking in your kitchen, and all the things that you enjoy, time with your family. Hats off to you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Trustee Boyd. I appreciate your kind words.
Trustee Davidson.
I just wanted to thank everyone for their time with our district and Director Ritchie. It's been really impressive, as Trustee Boyd just said, to watch you during these last few months. And I always felt like, okay, at least someone knows what's going on and has somewhat of a plan. That's great. I can feel reassured, and my kids can go to school, and we got this. Okay, so I really appreciate that, and I know that you spent more hours than any of us saw on that. And keeping all the kids safe. So I really appreciate that. And then I also would like to just say to Mayor Staton, I had the privilege of working with you at Cornell a little bit, and I will second what Ms. Reineuler said, that Mayor really is the the force behind the safety plans at that school and led those drills and coached everyone and made sure, came around to each classroom and made sure that everybody had what they needed and knew what they were doing and was ready to go, and then checked on the yard that we were all in our places and we knew what we were doing. So I think that that's just so impressive. And then my kids come home from library every day and I'm like, oh, well, we had this in library and we talked about this and we learned this and we read this book and it was really cool and we had a discussion, and then Miss Dayton showed me where this section was in the library. So it's just really an important part of their days. And for all of the students, I really appreciate what everyone has given them. Thank you.
Thank you. And just people have said a lot about Executive Director Ritchie, who also took on the job of high school principal at a time when Albany High really needed a leader. And then you took on a job that you didn't know was going to be really complicated, but turned into something else. So appreciate your willingness to step in. But I want to speak to something else, which is just, I've had the opportunity to see you with your children a couple of times, and to also just watch you connect with other people's children, you know, spying on you, talking with high schoolers, and just the way that you so clearly show that love and support for students at that, you know, I think what Trustee Doss described, you know, at key points in their lives, or just being able to connect with students and chat and show that sense of humor and caring that you have, because we see the more unflappable side of you, but it's very clear to me that that, you know, you're guided by that love for kids, for your kids, for other people's kids, and it really shows. So I may ask you for some parenting advice in the next couple of years, but I think all of us believe that education is, you know, foremost an act of love. And so being able to see that in you has been, you know, more fun than watching you give COVID updates, which I actually really don't miss. So congratulations and good luck with, you know, however you choose to spend your time. Maybe you could do the park ranger thing. That sounded pretty cool. And thanks for all the service your whole family has given to this district. And sorry that we can't do the cake and all that, you know, someday.
No, thank you, President and Trustee Davidson, again, for your kind words. It does. The adage, it takes a village, is so true. And this team, my exec team, the Board of Education, everybody who has stepped up into leadership positions, especially one of the best bosses I've ever had in the world, Dr. Frank Wells. Again, thank you all for your contributions and your support, and you're lifting me up all these years. Appreciate you all.
Great, thank you. We will miss you. Send us pictures of, of what you're up to. All right, so with that, we move on to needing to approve our consent calendar for the evening. So I will take a motion. Or questions, if there are any.
I move
President
that we
Hinckley?
approve the consent. Oh,
Yes, Superintendent Wells?
Oh, no, Trustee Davidson got it. I was just going to remind you, when no one has anything to pull, we could just move forward. That was just going to remind you. I think you were in shock. That's okay.
Just waiting for someone to make it. All right, Trustee Davidson has made the
I
motion.
always scroll to make sure that I always scroll because sometimes Vice President Duran is hiding in my bottom queue when we put this up, and I don't want to miss a hand. So I scrolled and then said yes. So I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay. Student Trustee Dana?
Yes.
Student Trustee Lira is absent. Trustee Boyd?
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Davidson?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Vice President Duran, absent, and President Hinckley.
Yes. The consent calendar passes unanimously, and we move to superintendent and board member reports, starting with you, Dr. Wells.
Thank you, President Hinckley. This has been a really challenging year. I don't need to repeat that or remind anyone, but I got to tell you that our administrative leadership team has taken on the challenge and did what's best for kids, and they soldiered along the way. And so we wanted to take a moment to take a year in review, to look at and highlight some of the things that have been happening at our wonderful sites and throughout our departments, in spite of all the challenges. So what you're going to see shortly here is a real short video, probably 45 seconds or so of each of some of our school sites. And then I'm going to walk you through what's been happening in our respective departments in the year 2021, 2022.
Hello, I'm Liz Reineuler, the principal of Cornell School, and I'm happy to take a moment to talk to you about how wonderful our coyotes are. We work together as a team here at Cornell. Of course, we have a fabulous staff of credentialed teachers, special ed teachers, and intervention and prep teachers, including library, PE, music, and of course, science. We also have an amazing classified staff, our office team, our noon supervisors, the custodial team, food service, and of course, our paraeducators work together to make a great environment for all of our students, especially in this time as we're coming out of the pandemic. That has been essential to be flexible and work together when we have new guidelines and other changes like that. Our PTA has been an amazing group this year as well. They've done some fabulous fundraising, even in the middle of the pandemic, and put on some great parent ed nights, including doing a wonderful mural for us on the yard. We are working to modernize our school and get in line with the rest of the schools that have been or are being rebuilt. To that end, we have technology upgrades, including Apple TV installed and Chromebooks for students. We're also looking forward to microphone refresh here at Cornell. We have an HVAC project that our director of facilities has been working on, and those heating, ventilation, and air conditioning will really help everyone be safe and comfortable here at school in the future. Finally, most recently, we are working on our yard rebuild and redesign. We're very excited to have some new fun and safe facilities out on the yard for all of the coyotes. All of these improvements are more than just nice to have, although that's certainly true. They're really essential for us to have the very best and most effective teaching and learning. Thank you all so much. Have a nice evening.
Hi, Sabina here from the Albany School Food Project.
I'm going to adjust the video 1 second. Sorry, looks a little blurry.
Despite many challenges this year with staffing, with food supply chain issues, with equipment delays, this amazing team of people has managed to serve over 235,000 lunches and over 78,000 breakfasts. Because of free meals, we've experienced a 34% increase in lunches and 24% increase in breakfast. This year, we were also able to bring back our free food pantry from the Berkeley Food Network twice a month at the high school multipurpose room. I'd just like to thank our entire community for all of the support, the volunteers, and everyone for helping us make it through this really challenging year. Thank you.
Hi, this is Albany and McGregor High School Principal Darren McNally. I've been asked to provide a little bit of a year in review for this incredible 2021-2022 school year. Before anything else, I want to really recognize and appreciate those people who've helped keep us safe from COVID. Our staff, our administrators, and especially our parent volunteers who've done all of our COVID testing on campus. One of the things I've actually been most impressed by this school year is that we were able to currently test half of the Albany High School student population every week for COVID and help try to keep school as COVID safe as possible. Some things that really stick out to me with this school year, first of all, is our COVID response with trying to move things outside as much as possible. It's been really incredible to see how our students have made the use of Memorial Park. And I really recommend anyone come by Memorial Park and take a look during the school day and see how much we're making use of that in partnership with the city of Albany. I also really want to recognize the really fantastic outdoor assemblies that we've been able to do this school year, especially our Diversity Week and Homecoming Week assemblies done on the field at Memorial Park. It's been really incredible to see our students adapt to changing environment and changing circumstances to really celebrate and create more school culture. I also really want to call out and celebrate our performing arts programs, which took an incredible hit last year because of not having in-person school. Seeing all of the student performances, the band performances, dance shows has been really incredible. And I really want to lift up and celebrate those students who are engaging in those incredible extracurricular activities. I also really want to celebrate our athletics programs. Many of our student athletes were hit so hard last year. And this year, we've been able to have so many fantastic student athletic events. Many of our students have made it to playoffs. And I really want to celebrate those Cougar athletes who have really embodied the spirit of our school. And last but not least, I also want to celebrate some of our academic clubs. Things like Model UN, which has gone to conferences, Youth in Government, and all of our other student organizations and the incredible things they've done. It's been a really challenging, but also really incredible school year.
Good evening, Board President Hinckley, board members, and community. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric Polovich, and I am the Director of Technology Services. It's unbelievable that the end of the school year is already upon us, but it was wonderful seeing our students back on campus and fully participating, not just in academic classes, but in all of the amazing extracurricular activities, from clubs to theater and music programs to athletics and everything in between. From a technology perspective, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Ang Pham on my team. We started the year with just the two of us, and she was an integral part of keeping the district moving forward. The first highlight then would have to be the hiring last November of our two new support technicians, Ava and Tom. They both hit the ground running and have quickly come up to speed with our technology. Having them on board has allowed our team to improve our service level to staff and students while handling over 3,000 help desk tickets this year. The second highlight would be the completed rollout of Chromebooks to get the district to one-to-one devices for all students from 3rd through 12th grade. Technology staff worked many hours getting approximately 2,900 Chromebooks configured and delivered to the school sites. Having these devices allowed constant and equal access to technology for students, as well as for teachers to better integrate technology into the curriculum. Technology also installed casting ability to our older school sites, including Cornell Elementary, the middle school, and the high school. This project involved mounting approximately 30 projectors to the ceiling in partnership with facilities, while installing Apple TVs in approximately 100 classrooms to bring them in line with what's installed at our newer buildings and sites. Having this technology provides a more comprehensive and equal teaching and learning environment for all of our sites. Those are just a few of the highlights, and I thank you for the opportunity to present them. We look forward to next year.
Good evening, members of the board and AUSD community. I am here to share with you some of the highlights of our school year and think about how far we've come in the years 20 to 21. So our year started with unpacking. About 100 boxes per classroom was the number. In each of our temporary facilities at the middle school and at the high school, we settled in quickly, and we appreciate the high school and the middle school for for being our roommates and neighbors here in our temporary facilities. We launched in pretty quickly in the fall with some positive behavior intervention systems to help our students understand behavior expectations in our new sites, and we have seen a ton of growth and in our students, and are seeing these systems kind of hum along with dolphin tickets and dolphin postcards to identify positive behaviors that we want to encourage in students here at school. We've spent quite a bit of time this year at Marin and across all 3 elementary sites implementing our fast bridge assessments. This is hugely important to the work that we care so much about in terms of closing achievement gaps and serving our neediest students. It's the work that we do on fast bridge helps us to ensure that we get all students the supports that they need to be successful at school. A highlight of the fall was from our Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Committee, or our IDEA Committee. We typically have an international potluck in the fall, but we haven't been able to do that in the last couple of years because of COVID. And they put together an international potluck Padlet that many families contributed to, and that was a lovely thing to celebrate from the fall. After a rough COVID January and a difficult surge, as we saw numbers decline, we got to open up our school site to our community a bit more. One of the highlights of the spring, one of the hugest highlights of this year, in fact, was our Chalk It Up day that we had about a few weeks ago. It's those of you who know the Marin community know that Chalk It Up has been an annual event for 25 years. This was our 25th anniversary, and seeing so many community members come to school on campus for that, the day on Saturday to chalk up our playground, participate in our book fair activities, see our author visit. It was just such a wonderful, fabulous return of this important tradition at our school. Our PTA has sponsored a wonderful superhero week at school, and that was so much fun. Thanks to our PTA for sponsoring that. We got to find our superpowers of kindness, courage, patience, teamwork, perseverance, and flexibility, and support students in having those conversations and understanding the importance of those superhero powers. What we've also seen this spring is that more and more classes are returning to an old tradition of ours, which is to do class plays in the classroom, and it's been wonderful to see a few groups of parents come onto campus to enjoy the learning and the singing and the wonderful, entertainment that we get from watching these kiddos perform these plays and learning so much about the topics that they're engaged in with those. We saw the return of our knitting club this spring with one of our fabulous volunteers and former staff members, and we opened that up to many 5th graders who were seen in at lunchtime knitting a variety of things, and that was super wonderful. We wouldn't have made it through this year without our wonderful PTA support with our staff appreciation lunches, funding for playground equipment and classroom supplies, and just knowing that they are always here for us to lean on. We really appreciate our PTA support. We're gearing up for an exciting last week of school with another Spirit Week and a hot dog lunch on the field with another return of an old Marin tradition. That's the 5th grade balloon toss and the staff balloon toss as well. That's next Wednesday. And and then we ended up all with a bang with 5th grade promotion on Friday and another set of kiddos skipping off to the middle school. So that is a year in review at Marin. Thank you.
Hello, board members, directors, and Albany community. It's so hard to believe that the 2021-22 school year is wrapping up. It has been quite a year that we have had, a lot of it colored by the ebbs and flows of COVID, but also a celebration of coming back together as a community in a physical space. Our teachers have worked incredibly hard, as well as the rest of our staff, to wrap around our students and provide them with a wonderful and supportive school experience. Our parent community has stepped in new ways, and our students never cease to impress and amaze me with their wonderful qualities and resilience. I want to just give a few highlights from our school year. First of all, within the facilities realm, there have been a lot of wonderful updates from our Cobra Legacy mural with past Cobras, fresh paint, wonderful flexible furniture with bright colors in the library and atrium, new lunch shelters for the rain and sun, and our PTA has updated the counseling room as well as our staff lounge which has been just a beautiful and wonderful environment that's been created. Our programs, we've restarted and reinvigorated SSA and clubs and Best Buddies. And we also began our Peer Circle Up program, our Peer Restorative Justice program, which has been a wonderful addition to our school community. In terms of our after-school programming, our music program has been up and running and thriving. Our sports programs have been competing against other schools, giving students that important middle school experience. And our after-school theater program has put on a wonderful spring musical. In terms of academics, we've had rewriting and re-updating of our curriculum through a diverse lens, piloting of novels, and integrating new and diverse novels into our curriculum. And we're ending the year with some wonderful spring activities, such as the spring soiree that our PTA and ASB student leadership put on together, our Greek games, field trips, and a culminating event of our 8th grade promotion ceremony, which we're really looking forward to doing in person. So thank you all so much, and we're excited to be ending up the school year in such a good place as a community, and look forward to seeing you next school year.
That is going to conclude our year in review part 1. I have a part 2 that I'm going to table till our next board meeting, and it's much shorter, but I thought you'd get a kick out of some memory lane like approach to a year review. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Oh, the pom-pom, one of the pom-poms is back. Yay. Great, thank you for putting that together. And it would be great to share that out with our community. I already spoke quite a bit at the opening of this meeting, so I will pass on making another report. And Vice President Duran is not here, so Trustee Doss, go ahead with your report.
Thank you. My report won't be long. It's since our last meeting, there's been a lot of different things that have kind of transpired and happened or whatnot that really kind of opened my eyes or shine a light on how important the job that we have here truly is. And I think sometimes, I'll only speak for myself, that sometimes I take that light a little more lightly than I should in terms of the importance of this job, but it hasn't hit me as hard as it has in the past couple of weeks with everything that's happening. And it just really humbles you. We have an obligation to every parent in this district to do two things, in my opinion. Educate their young their kids and keep them safe. In my opinion, those are our only two jobs. And we can't take that. We can't take either one of those things lightly. And I think sometimes I fall victim to that. But in the past few weeks, it's that definitely been a wake up call to take a closer look into how I approach my time as a board member. You know, how I approach different topics, how I approach problems and solutions. And so I just thought that I would share that's, kind of the, reflections and things that I've been thinking about, in the past couple of weeks since our last meeting and kind of how I'm thinking and looking at things, moving forward as we continue this work. And so I look forward to working with my fellow board members in the district, staff and teachers and administrators and everybody. I look forward to working with all of you and making sure that we keep those two things top of mind and that we do everything in our power to make sure that those little ones receive all the knowledge that we can give them and that they get home safe to their families. And I'll end with this, which is we all received a report of what happened to the student. And I just want to make sure that as a community, we're being vigilant. If you see something, say something, talk to your kids before they go to school, talk to them about, being safe, things they can do to be safer. If they have an opportunity to walk with a friend, let them walk with a friend. If you can drop them off, just drop them off. If you can pick them up, pick them up. Just for the time being, let's be overly cautious for a little while and just really try and be as safe as we can and keep these little ones safe. We have to protect them from people who obviously don't know right from wrong, but we have to protect them because they're not always in a position to protect themselves. So I just encourage everybody to be more vigilant as we move forward. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Boyd.
Thank you. I just, two things, just wanted to say, since this is the last board meeting of the school year before school ends, not our last board meeting of the school year, but thank you to all of the members of our community, our teachers and staff and administrators, our parents, our students, everyone who has gotten through what has been a really challenging year for all of us in some ways that are public and are known, and in some ways that are very private and that no one else knows about, to, keep the lights on and the doors open, and, have administrators in classrooms being substitute teachers when we don't have enough substitutes there. We have everyone just, like rolling up their sleeves and figuring out, how do I serve? How can I help? How can I carpool, bring this student where they need to go, even though I don't normally, but their parent's not here, or whatever it is, the ways in which people are just putting aside whatever it is they're dealing with to try to be there for each other and to try to keep our district going. I just want to appreciate that. I know that it's been difficult in some ways that are obvious and in some ways that aren't obvious. I've spoken to enough teachers and administrators to know that there have been challenges this year in the classroom that are unlike challenges that they've ever seen before in their, years, decades of teaching. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the difficulty that people have been experiencing, and to say thank you for continuing to, all of us try to bring our best every day as parents, as students, as teachers, staff, administrators, et cetera. And also just to encourage us to embrace opportunities to learn more and to be better. None of us have got it all figured out in whatever area you want to go to or look at. It's not a contest to see who can be the most woke, who can use the best vocabulary, who can do it all the best. We're all trying to figure things out and learning and saying the wrong thing sometimes and feeling embarrassed or feeling concerned about whether it's appropriate to say something right now or not. And if we do the best that we can with an open heart and an open mind and try to learn and try to be sensitive and be as aware as we can be. I believe Dr. Maya Angelou said, when we do the best that we can, and when we know better, we do better. If we can all just try to do that, then we can continue to grow in our community and in the greater community. And we can all just continue to be better. So it's, as we struggle to try to be the best versions of ourselves, there's no one person who's telling everybody else the right way to do it. We can all grow and we can all do a better job of respecting each other and acknowledging each other. And I just invite and encourage us all to continue to do that. And thank you all for doing that. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Davidson.
It is so loud in my house right now. I am so sorry. It was so nice to go to a meeting in person with all of you last night in a place that was not with 2 dogs and 2 kids. I will be very brief. I really appreciated our budget workshop and our ACC workshop last night, and I really appreciated some of our ACC teachers coming and sharing, the realities of all these things with us, and having a chance to kind of talk through some elements of the budget just in advance and really think about it and have that going on in our head and hear reasons that the district leadership team is making different decisions. And I really wanted to shout out Jackie and Marina. I can tell the two of you have been taking on a lot of extra roles because you were jumping in and answering questions that definitely do not fit your job description. And I was just really grateful that you were both willing to do that, so that we can feel informed and our community can feel informed. And I know that we all ask a lot, and that's what helps keep Albany really great and why people want to come and be part of our district. So thank you all. And I also, I don't think that we updated after the board policy committee meeting. I was just checking. I think it was on the 16th. So if Vice President Doran did, I'm sorry, but I will again. We had a great final meeting led by Assistant Superintendent Ann Shin and Kim Trutain, with Stephen Nath there. It's just it was a really great team, and I feel like in the end we had some discussions about different elements and nuances that I think are really going to help us guide some of these decisions as a district, and I'm excited for that to go forward. And that concludes my board member report.
Great, thank you. Student board members, Trustee Dana.
Yeah. Thank you guys for all of your reports. And they were really extremely motivational. I'm looking at you, Trustee Boyd. So yeah, I just wanted to shout you out there while I pull up. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna follow that with a large number of announcements, so sit tight. Firstly, at Albany High School, Choir's Variety Show is performing on Thursday and Friday this week, and it's completely free. And you're gonna see different performers each day if you come. And I think I'm performing Friday, so that should be exciting. And then the Ahs Students Art Show is this Thursday, May 26th from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. in the atrium and art building halls. Painting, drawing, ceramics, graphic design, and photography will all be included. Bring your friends and family to check out the amazing work and celebrate Ahs art students. And the cap and gowns will be available in the atrium during lunch and after school for students that are graduating. And this is only for the seniors that placed orders to be delivered at the school, and the last day for pickup is Thursday, May 26th. Student athletes must turn in all uniforms to the box at the front office ASAP. There's a fine of $50 for all missing uniforms and additional charges for gear. And also diplomas and transcripts will be withheld if not returned. I'd also like to say, extend my congratulations to the baseball team as the Cougars pulled off their second consecutive NCS upset by beating West County 5-3 on Friday. Albany will travel to San Marin, I'm not sure, today for a 5 p.m. semifinal game, and we'll get an update on how that went. All spring sports athletes continuing into postseason must take a COVID test at, and I think that was today at lunch, but I think COVID testing for all sports are on Tuesdays only. Okay. So that's another, if you have a student that is, or if you are a student that is planning on playing in postseason, please get your test on, well, you should have gotten it today, but I think you're also able to get it next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. And then all students in grades 9 through 11 should log into Aries ASAP to check your course selection for next year. If you would like to make a correction, please submit the Google form that was emailed to you Monday, May 23rd by the counselors, and the deadline is May 31st. And then I have for the middle school that Choir's Variety Show performed last night, and that was a huge hit. And I also just wanted to extend my congratulations to the Wizard of Oz cast at the middle school. I had the opportunity to see it, I think, the first opening night, and it was really, really great, and I'm really proud of all of the students that participated, and it looked like it was a lot of work, so I just wanted to extend my congratulations on a great show weekend. And then as for Marin, please turn in all Marin library books during this week, so that Ms. Jaffe can inventory the books and clean up the shelves for the summer. Look under couch cushions, check childcare locations, and clean out the car to find some of those books. And then if you think you lost a book, please contact Mrs. Jaffe at sjaffe@ausdk12.org, so your account can be resolved. As for Cornell, I'd just like to give a lost and found reminder, as school is ending. That goes for all schools. Please make sure that you have your belongings by the end of the year. Cornell also is returning library books, and it's going to be Friday, May 20th is the last day that they'll be checking out library books, but they want everyone to support their children in returning all their books during this week. And I think there's also a library book exchange going on right now, so bring an unwanted book to trade in now or on any day during this week. But please no baby or grown-up books or books in sad shapes. So I'm assuming that means please make sure that your books are okay and that they're not completely demolished. Spirit Day on Friday, May 27th is Tropical Day, and celebrate the Spirit Day by wearing your favorite Hawaiian shirt, brightly colored or floral clothing, flower leis, and sunglasses for Tropical Day. So that's all my announcements for Cornell. And then as for Ocean View, this week is also a Spirit Week. So tomorrow is Rainbow Day. Every grade level wears a color of the rainbow. So 5th grade is red, 4th grade is orange, 3rd grade is yellow, 2nd grade is green, 1st grade is blue, and kindergarten is purple, and then TK is white and gray, the color of the clouds. It's very cute. I love that. And then Thursday this week is Silly Day, so that's socks, hats, hair. And then Friday is Comfy, Snuggle, Stuffy Day. And pajamas are optional, and there's going to be lunch on the field. And then I have, on a slightly more somber note, Ichtaka. So I have not been at school recently, as per my illness. So Ichtaka has put together a report on an issue that they touched on last board meeting, I think. And this is just an update to the community and kind of a description of what the event that was mentioned was. And then I think there's going to be another student that is going to be talking about that later this meeting. So we just wanted to introduce that. So last Tuesday, an organization of AHS students called Speak hosted an event at the high school to allow students to express their opinions about Roe versus Wade. They asked, "What does Roe versus Wade mean to you?" And students were free to write their opinions either in the front of the school with chalk or on a butcher paper poster that was posted inside the school. The group did not receive permission before posting these messages, and their words were taken down and washed away 2 days later by members of the school site administration without notice. Currently, a meeting is being planned between AHS administration and Speak to talk about how this situation is handled and what the relationship will look like in the future, and how we will move forward as a community when addressing important issues and current events. The organization Speak, this is just a background, was established 6 years ago in response to the racist Instagram page that was created. Their mission is to hold space for conversations surrounding marginalized groups who are often underrepresented in our education system. And they have a long history of visiting every 5th grade classroom in our district several times a year to give presentations and host activities that teach students about intersectionality, oppression, advocacy, and identity. So as a school board member, Ichtaka wanted to bring up this event at the meeting tonight because we all acknowledge that as a school district, the events that happen at one site can quickly impact the culture at another. I know this from the Instagram page that did happen at the high school when I was in middle school. So that's just an example. Our community is a close-knit one, and when one group of students feels unheard, the same feeling may ripple to others. And it is important that we address these moments as they happen. And so that's why we didn't wait until the school site meeting with the administration just to voice it on this larger platform. Personally, as students, we are invested in the free speech rights of our peers, and we are hopeful that this upcoming meeting between Speak and AHS administration will clarify what it is and isn't allowed, what is and isn't allowed in terms of on-campus advocacy, as well as establish a clear relationship between Speak and the high school admin, and then just kind of how that affects our culture on a broader district level. So yeah, those are all my updates. I know that was kind of long, but thank you for bearing with me.
Great, thank you, and thank you for reading. It's not just Trustee Lyra's statement, but thank you for reading it on their behalf since they can't be here tonight. And now we move to, sorry, lost track of my agenda. Now we move to persons' public comment on matters that are not on tonight's agenda. And we will start with Phoebe.
Hello. I was wondering if I could turn on my camera. I'm not sure where I can find that. And if I can't, it's all right.
I'm going to move you in as a panelist, and then you should be able to.
Hi, everyone.
There you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe Mcmahon, and I wanted to continue the conversation that Allison just brought up. I am one of the lead members of the student activist group Speak at the high school, and I am here today to voice my concerns regarding the mistreatment our group has experienced from the AHS administration and pretty much our outrage at the restriction of our freedom of speech and expression. As stated, on May 10th, Speak hosted an event for all AHS students to share their opinions on the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We bought materials such as chalk, poster paper, and markers for students to write on the front steps of the school and on a banner that was put up in the hallway. We posed the question, what does Roe v. Wade mean to you? Students were able to share their ideas regarding this topic to create a space for powerful discourse. After a few hours of the chalk and poster being up, a nonviolent debate took place in front of the school after a few students had written anti-abortion sentiments. The next day, our chalk was power washed away and our poster was crumpled up into a ball without any communication or explanation. As a group, we posed this unbiased question to create discussion between students of all ideologies and backgrounds. Speak aims to create safe spaces for discourse surrounding controversial yet important political and social topics and current events. We believe that our freedom of speech has been violated and we have been poorly treated as a student group. Isn't the education system intended to create critical thinkers? Speak respectfully demands that our freedom of speech and support from the administration continues to foster spaces where healthy disagreement is encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for resetting that. Next is Neri.
Good evening, board and administration. Thank you for taking my comment. I just wanted to recognize Cornell librarian Ms. Staten for all her years of service, and on a very personal note, for all the effort that she made to be as inclusive as possible in library time. This was especially evident during remote learning last year. She made a point to include our daughter, not only by having her participate in her classes, but also by including readings for all the students so that they could be better educated about the different ways of being in the world. She has played a pivotal role in our sons learning to love reading. It wasn't easy at the beginning, especially not when a lot of the learning was happening in remote learning. But now he's someone that we can confidently say he loves books. And then lastly, most recently, someone very close to us and to our family died unexpectedly to us, but not to her family. And because we hadn't had that experience, we didn't really know how to talk to our children about death and dying. And we knew who to go to, and we asked her for recommendations, and she sent us this book from the library called Lifetimes, The Beautiful Way to Explain Death to Children. And that was very helpful for us to communicate in a caring way for our kids about something that they hadn't experienced before. So thank you, Ms. Staten, for all the service, and I hope that retirement suits her very well.
Thank you. We'll have to make sure to tell her to watch that part of the video. So I don't see any other public comment, so we will move to our staff report, which is enrollment projections from the Power School group.
Enrollment projection from our Power School group will be facilitated by both our Chief Human Resource Officer, Marina Gonzalez, and our CBO, Jackie Kim.
Good evening, board, Superintendent Wells, and Albany community members. So this purpose of this item is to inform the board about our enrollment projection. And enrollment projection is important because it helps the district to better understand the total enrollment projections, pictures, present and future, in order to implement better plans for our classrooms and operations. And enrollment impacts every aspect of the district operations, including budgets, staffing, facility planning, and program offerings. We have a Power School here this evening to present enrollment projection report. Okay.
Good evening, board and community of Albany Unified School District. Just as a quick audio check, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to be, Jackie, do you want me to drive the PowerPoint, or would you like to keep it on your end?
Sure, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Once again, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you today. I've had the pleasure of working with Jackie and Marina over the last few weeks to get this presentation ready. And I'm excited to be speaking to the Albany Unified School District Board and community about your enrollment forecast projection for 2022. Just as a brief agenda setting for the presentation we're going to be walking through, we're going to introduce who we are. We're the Predictive Enrollment Analytics section of Power School, and we're going to be working through some information around your enrollment projections. We'll touch briefly on the historical enrollment analysis, get an understanding of where you have been, talk about our new housing development or residential research and understanding of how that's going to be influencing your enrollment going forward, and then get really into the meat of the presentation, which is your enrollment forecast, and then hopefully have some time to ensure that there's any questions that the board might have can be satisfactorily answered. Just a bit about us. Again, we are the Power School Group. We're the leading provider of ed tech in North America, serving millions of students, over 45 million, in over 13,000 school districts around the country, with all sorts of services that help provide a comprehensive suite of mission-critical education solutions. Our portion of this, the Predictive Enrollment Analytics tool, helps you understand and solve enrollment-based challenges facing districts like yourself. So we're going to jump right into the historical enrollment analysis of Albany Unified. What we're looking at right now is a chart, which is the 4-year historical change graph showing the growth or contraction by grade and cohorts within your district. So just to get a piece of, just to get a satisfactory understanding of what we're looking at, this is marking a change in the listed cohort between November of 2018 and November of 2021. So the way to read this is to say that the kindergarten cohort in 2021 was 84% of the size that it was in 2018. Taking the entire K-5 cohort, that number was 92% of its 2018 number. You see a bit of growth in your 9-12 up to 101, but the overall number for the district is about 95%. So again, what we're interpreting there is that Albany is a slightly contracting school district as we see the 4-year historical change, showing a 95% enrollment count from the previous year. Sorry, from the previous 4 years. And just to get an understanding of that in a bit more detail, what we're looking at right here is what we call our cohort replacement number. Just kind of trying to give an understanding of how each cohort is being replaced or not on a percentage by the same group exiting the district within that year frame. So again, just to get an understanding of how to read this chart, what we're saying is that in 2019, there were 88% as many kindergartners entering the cohort as there were leaving. So, you know, just by way of an understanding, if there were 100 kindergartners exiting the grade in 2019, only 88 replaced them. The number perhaps that's the most interesting as we talk about the cohort replacement in our enrollment projections is the grade 12 2K number. So line 2 is basically informing us of the size percentage of the kindergarten class as compared to the matriculating 12th graders leaving the district. A number of 100% would give us a rough estimate of a completely flat district. That is to say, for every single student graduating in 12th grade, they were being replaced by one single kindergarten. The smaller that number is, the more indication we have of a contracting district. Now, there's certainly countervailing factors students can enter after grade K. There are other entry grades. There are other reasons that students might enter in middle or high school, and it's not a perfect representation of growth or contraction, but it is an important understanding to say that your kindergarten cohorts are notably smaller than the exiting 12th grade matriculated cohorts. And just as a summary, what we see is the total K-12 size, which sort of gives more a flavor of the actual size of contraction of the district overall, which is to say that in 2019, your district was 98% as big as it was in 18. In 2020, it was 97% as big as it was in 2019. And in 2021, you'll note that the district actually didn't have any contraction. Now, that's largely attributed to the rebalancing and the evening out of students returning to the classroom following enrollment changes due to the COVID epidemic, especially in the lower grades, as we saw students at the pre-K through 3rd grade respond differently and in lower numbers in enrollment to asynchronous and remote learning. So what we've looked at right now is just a historical analysis on a percentage by percentage basis of what the district's historical analyses have looked like. What we're going to be jumping into is the enrollment forecast going forward. In order to do that, I do just want to briefly touch on the residential development research. In addition to just forecasting your enrollment students, the predictive enrollment analytics tool actually does have a group of residential researchers who work with developers and planning commissions within your community to get an understanding of any new housing in the district, contacting those developers for developer fee lists, references, anything like that to ensure we have a comprehensive list, and then making a compiled list for your district of any and all new developments, the type of housing that may be coming in, so apartments, multifamily housing, single family attached that might be considered row houses, single family detached, and engaging in mathematical modeling of the likely number of students generated by each of that new residential forecast. What that helps us do is place those buildings in their exact geographic location within your district, within your potential school boundaries, although I know Albany is an all open, is an all school of choice district. So those are landing in all schools, and then placing those students in our enrollment forecast going forward. So we're not just looking at the mathematical algorithmic trend lines within your district, but understanding what new residential development effects might have on the district. Before we jump into the enrollment forecast, Jackie, would you like me to pause and see whether the board has any questions on the entry pieces or go straight to the enrollment forecast first?
I think I will leave that up to President Hinckley.
I think it's fine to move forward. Yeah.
Great. And if you do have any methodological questions or anything like that, please feel free to bring them up at the end or as we look at the way that they're integrated into the enrollment forecast. So we'll move straight into that enrollment forecast. Just a bit of understanding about those factors influencing enrollment. Again, the primary factors that do influence those calculations are our kindergarten entry grade. We do use what's generally known in the business as a cohort progression methodology, which is to say that the effect of each cohort as it's moved forward year by year is the most important single determining factor in a grade. So the kindergarten students enter, we age those grade cohorts through the system. As I said, we place those new residential development impacts within the projection. And we also look a great deal at inter and intra-district transfers. So inter-district transfers coming in to your district from outside the district boundaries, and also looking at the draw rates and historical open enrollment or school of choice decisions made within your district as they might influence future enrollment on a school by school projection basis. There are, of course, other factors that can influence enrollment apart from those that we mentioned above. Those can include things like private and charter school enrollment, which will obviously have an effect on the overall district enrollment. The housing market will affect not just residential development, but potentially the overall body of students eligible or resident within your district. And our final bullet point on this is what we call anomalous events. Obviously, folks who work in the education sphere and across the world are aware of what anomalous events, such as a global pandemic, might do to enrollment projections and cause changes in enrollment factors. And those are just some of the different factors that we both can and sometimes can't account for when we look at an enrollment projection. We're obviously not including, another pandemic in a 10-year enrollment projection, but those are the kind of factors that we do include from a methodological and conversational standpoint when looking at those enrollment projections. We are going to be looking at two different studies today, two different enrollment projections. We complete two of these studies for your district each and every year, what we call our conservative study and our moderate study. Just for the board and the community's understanding, those have two slightly different sort of case studies for their usage. The conservative study is really aimed at budgeting. We want to make sure that we do not overestimate student enrollment when looking at student reporting to the state, to the feds in terms of budgeting. And the moderate is really targeted towards facilities. That is to say, we want to make sure that you guys can adequately and accurately plan for every kid who shows up on day one of school each year. And so we have those two slightly different methodologically sound projection lines that we provide to you as two different studies, again, the conservative and the moderate. And we'll be looking at both of those later in the projection. Just to understand a slight difference between those two, the conservative study is going to look at a lower mathematically viable projection methodology. There are a few different pieces that go into calculating that, but basically we apply those two trends, and the lower of which is the conservative, the higher of which is the moderate. There are some similar differentiations to some of the other pieces we've talked about. Those transfers, again, if there's a range of plausible incoming or outgoing transfers, we apply the lower bound to the conservative, the higher to the moderate, and similarly to residential development. When we do our residential development studies for districts, we're going to apply the conservative methodology is going to be our own interpretation of what we believe a realistic outcome for developers is going to be. The one applied to the moderate is going to be actually the developer's timeline itself. So that if the developer thinks 100 units are going to be done in 3 years, we might stretch that over a 5-year time horizon, given our experience on the viability and timeliness of developer timelines on the exact occupancy of buildings and how that might affect student enrollment. So we're going to move on from the methodology to the actual numbers. I am going to warn folks before they look at it, there's just going to be a big old wall of numbers. Again, this deck is publicly posted, and I think it's going to be most helpful probably to just get a general understanding of what we're looking at. And if folks have deeper questions, certainly we'd love you to review on at a later date, or if you have questions that you can track with the table up now, we'd love to answer them as we can. The general focus of the projections, both the conservative and the moderate, is in fact going to be showing a slight to meaningful decline over the 5 to 10 year time horizons. Just a note on reading this projection, years 2018 through 21 are actuals, so those are going to be the same in both the conservative and the moderate projection. And then 22 is the first projection year out to 2031, a 10-year time horizon. And again, what you'll see is the 14 years, TK through 12 of the grade by grade projections, subtotaled, the percentage changes of those, the SDC students broken out, not by grade, and then the totals for your district. Again, what we're looking at in the conservative, again, you can see a current enrollment of 3,514 in 21. That was the audited register that we based the projections off of. A slight decline in 22, about a 2% loss, and a similar loss, with some variance, obviously, in those future years, ending in 2031 with an approximate enrollment projection of about 2,750. A meaningful decline, obviously, as we look at the 1 to 3% enrollment decline over the following years, an approximate loss of somewhere around 30 to 60 students each year over that 10-year time horizon. Again, moving on to the moderate, what we're going to see is a similar piece of information, identical information, obviously, on the actuals, and then some slight declines in 2022, and a much more leveled out enrollment projection. So the conservative, again, is going to paint a more, I don't know if pessimistic, realistic, conservative are all words that one could apply to it, but a upper bound enrollment projection in the moderate, where some of that residential development is more active, and some of those enrollment drops, especially those due to COVID, maybe do not have the ongoing maintaining effect that that the conservative model supposes they might. And so again, when we look at this, we see a projection of 34-41, or nearly a flat enrollment from 21 to 22, and declines more in the percent to 0.5%, dropping the district to closer to 3,000 than 2,800, 2,700 students in the conservative forecast. And just to get an understanding of what that might look like, again, this is those same information plotted out, again, as those total aggregated students. Years 18 through 21, our 4 years of actuals are obviously identical. And then what you can see is the mathematical trend lines. The algorithmist spreads the student enrollment projection over the years, but looking in both projections at a situation of modest to moderate decline. Again, a situation mirrored over nearly every single district across the state of California. And so with that, I'm going to move on to our question and answer. Again, I feel free to answer any questions on methodology, on the actual specifics of the numbers, or any other questions you might have about the enrollment projection.
Thank you. That was a very concise presentation. So I have a question that I guess is a methodology question.
Sure.
And I, just so folks know, there's, in addition to the slideshow in the backup material, there's also a longer version that does discuss a little bit more of the methodology, but in there you have a list of the variables that are going into the algorithm, and one of them is the incoming out of district transfers. So if you could kind of summarize, because I know, you know, we've seen projections like this and everyone says, oh, we'll just fill all that with inter-district transfers. And so if you could explain how our recent history of out-of-district transfers is built into the model, and then, so that's the methodology part. But then I guess the follow-up is, what would you say if someone said, oh, we can fill this with inter-district transfers? How does that sound to you as a strategy?
Sure. So
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, inter-district transfers they're an important number. They are generally speaking driven by, as you say, sort of policy and recruitment more so than just enrollment projections. So from a methodological standpoint, you know, we treat out-of-district transfers just much like we would any other block of students with the historical enrollment pieces of information that we have. So we take the 4-year historical, 18 through 21, look at any trend lines we have. We'll get a basically generate a fairly simple weighted average supposition on the number of students coming in as out-of-district transfers. Those students will be placed into the district aggregate sort of body as we place all other students, and especially because you guys are a district where where there are no individual elementary school or middle or high, but obviously no individual school boundaries. What we utilize to place those students is what's called the draw rate. So it's going to be the same basic number as these out-of-district transfer students' decisions, historical decisions are going to influence how we place those decisions. So basically we're going to engage in like I'm trying to remember the precise percentage, but a much more weighted on the last year historical weighted average for the number, and then place those students in the schools based on their draw rates. Now, because out-of-district transfers are a enrollment and transfer policy piece, we work with districts like yours who accept out-of-district transfers. If there are plans to change the policy, we can certainly, you know, if there's, for instance, a waiting list of out-of-district transfers, and there's a decision by the community, or sorry, by the school administration to open up that waiting list, we can certainly place all of those students in the enrollment projection, either exactly where we know they would want to go or based on historical pieces. In terms of, this is obviously a little bit outside of my exact purview in my current role, but I have worked in district offices in enrollment transfer and budgeting before. In terms of the simple statement of we can fill those slots with out-of-district transfers, again, my professional statement is that there are only about 3 or 4 districts of the 150 we work with in California that are not shrinking, which is to say that the pot of students that public school districts are going after is not increasing anywhere in the Bay Area, anywhere in greater LA County, anywhere in the South Bay, anywhere in San Diego. There are some areas along the Mexican-California border that do have some growth, but those aren't the students that you guys are going to be able to draw from a statewide or countrywide demographic standpoint. And so, you know, there are certainly ways to make individual to small community numbers appealing for a school district, but from a pure demography study of the state and community and county at large, I wouldn't say that there is a pot of students to recruit that is getting larger across the state of California. So, you know, a little bit of supposition there. Obviously, you know, everything we do, there's an art to all of the projection work that we do, but we are certainly not finding large pots of out-of-district transfers for any, and it's not just California. There are really, you know, there are a few types of districts, ex-urban districts and major East Coast cities have some growth of flight from the COVID pandemic. That's really the only places that we have those students to recruit for major American public school districts. So that'd be the answer such as I can give it.
Got it. And so just to clarify, or maybe this is just a statement. So could you maybe go to one of the projection tables, or I guess there's one.
Is there a specific?
I guess that maybe the moderate one is fine. The table page 10.
Okay.
So this, you know, for the past 3 years, I guess we've been pretty aggressively recruiting inter-district transfers. So those are, you know, obviously built into these numbers. So it seems to me clear that this sort of presumes that we continue to bring in inter-district transfers at the rate that we've been doing for the last couple of years.
And even that,
is
again,
that
just
true?
Yeah, correct.
Right.
So these actuals include your out-of-district transfers, and what we can see is that even with that active recruitment, you know, that may be offsetting what we might consider the natural decline due to, you know, I guess the demography of the specific boundary of your district. And so, you know, if you were doing nothing to recruit now, maybe there would be some wiggle room to try to nudge that number back up with out-of-district enrollment. If that out-of-district enrollment recruitment is already an active process, it's already reflected in the actuals. And what we see is a decline, you know, in most places, steeper than the declines we're forecasting. Again, there's the countervailing effects of COVID and the return of students from COVID, again, especially at TK and K and into first and second and third grade. But, you know, even with that return, and you can see the little bounce back up from 20 to 21, the declines from 18 to 19 and 19 to 20 are those audited registers are before the COVID pandemic. So that is probably, if we're talking just about the most likely scenarios of, you know, what are the demographic trends in terms of enrollment of your district looking like, these two that I circled here are probably the two most important numbers to see. And again, as you said, those already do include some out-of-district recruitment.
And then just a point that we heard last night, that our TK enrollment doesn't seem to be going up as much as we thought,
sure,
which is surprising. So maybe, you know, maybe these numbers will be where we end up. That would be great. But I just wanted to, as a, you know, looking at this is I don't know what the word is. It's not great. And obviously we know, you know, you lose economies of scale when your enrollment goes down throughout the TK through 12 in terms of having that money for, you know, intervention and administration and so forth, because you know, even if you can reduce the number of classes that you have. But just for those who haven't been in some of the discussions about what this looks like at the high school, I think is especially worrisome for me, because we've been hearing, that, you know, once we start falling below 300 kids per cohort, and actually the principal said, you know, 310, 320 would be ideal. And the fact that we have TK going up for some of this period masks a little bit of what's happening at the high school, where we're falling pretty low in the high school pretty quickly. And that for me is kind of the more alarming part, because then you lose the ability to offer some of the electives, you lose the volume of kids to offer arts programs, and athletics looks different. And, you know, that's a little bit concerning for me, especially because I think it's going to happen faster, and it's harder to think about how you compensate for, because you just can't offer quite the same curriculum when you have so many fewer students. So that's neither here nor there. That's just what I'm finding surprising or distressing in this. So I'm stalling in case anybody else has any other questions or comments, or CBO Kim too, if you want to comment, or Marina, on some of the implications of this. But it looks like now there's some other questions, starting with Trustee Boyd.
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. It's concerning but illuminating. I just had one question, which is, I know that you touched on it, but if you could talk just a little bit more about the difference in the conservative versus the moderate, kind of what would need to happen in order for the moderate to be what actually happens, like what are the factors that are going in there, and, you know, if the moderate is like pie in the sky, like, yeah, maybe you click your heels together and it'll happen, or if, you know, it's actually kind of seems, you don't have a crystal ball, but you know, whether it seems realistic or if it's, you know.
Sure. So there are both like there are mathematical trend line differences. So basically, and then some of the factors, and I'll go back into those a little bit more, just kind of trying to explain how the transfer and the residential development and some of those other sort of exogenous forces might push them. So the basic piece is we basically draw two, again, weighted average trend lines. They differ by about 1% per year. So it's just to say, and we would do a postmortem with each and every one of our client districts. Our aim is always to be plus or minus 0.5% in the first out year as we do this. So basically, all of that said slightly more complicatedly than it needs to be. In the first out year, our projections are about 1% different. We anticipate landing the true enrollment projection almost precisely between those, being 0.5 percentage point behind, up from one and down from the other. If you look at the both at the table itself, and if the numbers, if you do the math in the numbers yourself, when we're not on a projection, what you'll see is a variation of about an additional percent each out year. So our second year is about 2% different, third year about 3% different. I say about because there obviously are exogenous factors, just the mathematical trend line. If we were just drawing a line, we obviously, you wouldn't necessarily need us to come just draw a mathematical trend line. So again, a few of those factors that are going to change it are some of the exogenous census data. So things like live birth data, pieces of demographic information from the census at large, telling us about changes of the communities in the census plots themselves. So if there are changes in the census age groups and the live birth data from, that are showing up because we happen to be 3 months out from a decennial census, that information is pretty applicable right now. If there are, baby booms or baby bubbles that we can see already in the live birth data, we can incorporate those. Again, basically a straight line for the moderate and a more conservative approach for the conservative, to say those are pieces where maybe you're going to get and forgive me for not remembering the number off the top, but maybe instead of a 230 student kindergarten, all of a sudden, if there's 700 live births in the community, maybe we have to consider some factors like that, and the residential development piece as well. And again, the way that the residential development conservative and the moderate works is not just a purely mathematical model. The moderate residential development model is going to be based on sort of the glossy developer packet that they're going to hand into the committee for the developer fees. And they're going to say, we're going to be, shovels in 2021. We're going to finish all of our units by 2023. And every single one of them is going to have a 2.3 family household with every kid in the public schools resident 6 months later. We've been doing this for 20 years with several hundred districts, and we have a pretty well-established mathematical modeling to, in essence, smooth out their developers' projection timelines to say, we think that you're going to complete it on 70% of your original timeline and occupy it on 65. And those aren't precise numbers, but they're not too far off. So that's going to affect the number of kids that you have coming in based on those residential pieces. So we're not going to provide you, unless a district asks for a unique, I think you use pie in the sky, but a uniquely high projection. We're not going to provide, the moderate is not less realistic in essence than the conservative. It just assumes that the developers finish their projects when they say this live birth data, those students are coming into the public schools in ways that, to be completely frank, they haven't been showing up in public schools as much as they might have 15 or 30 or 50 years ago, and just a few other factors. So I wouldn't necessarily say less realistic. Obviously, for folks like yourself as trustees of a district, you certainly hope it's as realistic, because we do understand the stresses and the diseconomies of scale of contraction in a smaller district like yourself, especially. So we certainly understand that the message being portrayed in the conservative can be a shock to folks who sit on staffing committees and work with, as board president spoke about, with trying to staff high schools and things like that. And so we do want to provide that sort of range of viable options to give an understanding of where you might be looking from a facilities planning and from a long-term planning in that 5 and 10-year projection.
Thank you.
Trustee Davidson.
Thank you. This is really helpful. I think that just for me, it would actually help if we could, at a future date, see maybe from like 2015 to 2020. I think it's tricky because the majority of this data is COVID pandemic time. So I see those 2 years and kind of what was happening, but, and I can go back and just check our overall enrollment, but that would be helpful. And then the other thing I had asked originally, sort of the preemptive thought process behind asking for something like this, just on my end, was to see how many kids, potential students we have living in Albany, and then how many are actually attending our public schools, and how many are going elsewhere, to see if there's anything that we could do to help attract those students to stay within our district and not choose a charter school or a private school. Is there any way that your company does that, or maybe that's something that we need to look elsewhere for?
There absolutely is a way that we can do that. There's obviously some limitations, and I can speak with Jackie and Marina as we sort of talk about, the staff back and forth work of this to provide the reports. But the basic answer is yes. I mean, we are as your district demographer, we also have access to a whole bunch of demographic data about from the census itself. So, when we're talking about your students, obviously we're talking about specific students, with a student ID and an address. When we're talking about census data, there's a bit more sort of anonymity or another layer of information, but we can certainly provide you guys with information about the students and families resident within your district, and in essence, back out the students who do attend your schools. And certainly from a planning perspective and mathematical perspective, we can work with staff to say, in essence, the enrollment number in the Albany community is 50% of all the students resident, or 20% of all the students resident, or 95% of all the students resident, and help get an understanding of, is the return on investment of the recruitment of students within your own community. How big that pot of students is. If you were 100% successful, what would that mean for enrollment within the district? Again, looking at live birth data, looking at the number of students, school-age students within your district, absolutely. So again, I believe Jackie will be my ongoing district contact, and we could certainly have those maintaining conversations that, sort of put together a staff report for something that would help inform that work in work with enrollment transfer communications, what have you.
And we did get one, well, we don't know how big of a piece of the picture it is, but we do have we have access to the information about how many students we grant transfers to other districts, and it was very small. That obviously doesn't tell us anything about private school enrollment, but it is it may be indicative of something. Trustee Doss.
Thank you. Hold on here. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I know what was happening with the background. My question is, I know that we have to kind of take into account, COVID and the numbers obviously, are going to be, different, fluctuate, based on that. But there was a period in time where we changed programming, and we changed the amount of hours, or we changed the time in which students were in school. And so I guess my question is, how do you determine whether or not the numbers support people leaving for that versus it just being, coincidence, or that's just a decision that people were making? So how do you differentiate that? Is there like a threshold? Like if it's more than 5%, then you know that it's because of that event? Or I hope I'm asking that question the right way.
Just to ask a clarifying question, you're asking whether or how we basically apply rationale to the trend line behaviors that we see in the historical. So,
yeah, because it sounded like you were saying like, hey, this is, these numbers are based on, this is what happened, this is what's happening in your district.
Sure.
This is also what's happening like in other districts. Mm-hmm. But our district is unique because there, in early we changed from early bird, late bird to AM PM, and my thought process was like, we lost a lot of students because of that. But do the numbers support that is just a coincidence and that everybody kind of lost students?
Yeah, so two answers to that question. One is that when we start your enrollment projection process in the fall every year, we send out so obviously, we're a demography company. A lot of what we're doing is going to be based on the pure quantitative, trend lining and the way those things appear. However, because of almost exactly what you're saying, we do engage in a qualitative survey with each and every district before we begin the enrollment projection process, which is basically asking for pieces of information like that. In essence, are we as a demographer or anybody looking at a simple piece of numerical information? Are there pieces we're going to be missing by looking at just this piece of information? And so, our sort of easy schoolhouse analogy is always like, if a dish or if a single school, maybe like a magnet program, had a super popular principal who was responsible for all of the enrollment at that one school and bringing those students in, and Principal Jones has decided to retire that year, that school might be suffering enrollment, but that we're not going to see that number show up in the school by school projection until the year we're projecting. If you're drawing a trend line, you're going to miss that information. Similarly, the opening and closing of new schools, the changing of, we spoke about some other, mostly about inter-district transfer policies, but changes of other district policies that are going to that are going to affect enrollment. We gather that information so that when our enrollment projection analysts go through the work, what they're going to do is they are going to run it as the mathematical trend lining, and then they're going to do a cohort by cohort, grade by grade, school by school analysis, and consider whether those pieces of information appear to have relevance. So, when you say, there's a piece of information, maybe this is what caused the decline in enrollment, maybe it was due to other things. What I would say, looking at the historicals, is the declines in enrollment look pretty consistent with the declines of other districts around the Bay, based on both COVID and non-COVID affected years, which is to say, I can't personally, obviously we're not surveying families, right? So to your question, on a really specific level, no, we're not surveying families to say, was your decision to leave the district based on COVID, a private school, or a change in a change in schedule. But what we can see is a trend line that does not appear to show a unique dip or increase from an exogenous factor like that, and that your district tends to be following trend lines consistent with the rest of Richmond County, the rest of the Bay, the rest of the East Bay, California at large, and again, nearly every single major urban district we look at. So again, I'm sure there are individual families who that may have the effect on. It doesn't appear, at least based on a cursory look right now, and we can certainly dig into it more, to be based on some of those scheduling factors.
Did you have another question, Trustee Das?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Great. So CBO Kim, do you want to just maybe talk about what our next steps are? Or, your hand went up and then.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So this will be the base for our enrollment projection for the next year and into the budget for next year. What I'm planning to do is I am going to have a meeting also with our enrollment department who oversees, and Marina oversees the enrollment department, and with the superintendent, and see where we are with the IDT. So we know which numbers we can use. I'm thinking, I know Jack just stated that usually district should or use usually the conservative numbers. But if I can check the numbers as of next week and see if we have a great IDT came in already, then maybe we can use the in-between numbers between the conservative and moderate, like in-between numbers. So I think that might be a good way to approach. So we are, if our IDT is already over the conservative numbers with the IDT, then I think I would feel comfortable using even between the numbers, between the conservative and moderate.
Got it. Great. Well, this is really helpful. And just great to have all pulled together, especially since I know we have a few housing projects coming online. And I guess in my head, that was dozens of new students every year. And as I read your explanation of, people aren't multiplying, by the dozens in the buildings once they move in, that was helpful to just really have that made concrete. So encourage folks to continue to encourage the city to build more affordable housing for families, so that we can maybe come back in a couple of years and run this differently. But thank you so much for the report, and look forward to maybe not experiencing this set of projections. But thank you so much, and thank you, Jackie, for getting this before us, before we have to talk about the budget. It's my role, right, to tell us what we're doing next. So we now have a public hearing to hold on Resolution 2021-22-32, Sufficiency of Instructional Materials. Dr. Shin, I don't know if you want to speak to this before I open the hearing.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Wells, Board Trustees, and Albany community. The purpose of this item is for Albany Unified School District Board of Education to conduct a public hearing regarding resolution number 2022-22-32, Sufficiency of Instructional Materials. So California Education Code 60119 requires school districts to hold an annual public hearing and adopt a resolution stating whether each pupil in the district has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials in reading language arts, mathematics, science, history, social science aligned to content standards. And our school site principals have submitted documentation regarding the inventory and availability of California State Board of Education adopted or locally adopted standards aligned instructional materials. The district currently has records indicating that SBE adopted standards aligned textbook materials were adopted and purchased by the district in all required areas.
Great, thank you. So I am going to open our public hearing and allow anyone from the public who would like to ask questions or make comments. As Dr. Shin said, all of these materials are posted as part of the agenda packet. All right, seeing no comment, I will close the public hearing and we will move on to item 14A, which is for the board to approve the resolution. If you want, I think you can just show the resolution, if you don't mind. I don't know if there's anything to add, but here's the resolution that says, as Dr. Shin said, we have to pass this every year, attesting to every student having appropriate education materials. Are there any questions from the board?
I move that we approve resolution 2021-22-32, sufficiency of instructional materials.
Second.
Student trustee Dana?
Yes.
Student trustee Lira is absent. Trustee Davidson?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Vice President Duran is absent. For the record, President Hinckley?
Yes.
And Trustee Boyd?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. The resolution passes unanimously, and we move on to item 14B, ratification of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Service Employees International Union and the Albany Unified School District.
Our Chief Human Resource Officer, Marina Gonzalez, will take this one.
Thank you. And I'll share my screen. So this item is an exciting item. This is the result of the work that we have done with our labor partner group, the Service Employees International Union. SEIU is their acronym. And we worked together to examine some of the salary ranges for some of our classifications, especially around some food service classifications, our custodial classifications, and maintenance. And from that, we agreed to make some changes to those salary ranges. And we think that this is in line with our, with our neighbors, with what they're offering, which will also help us to attract and retain staff. And I just want to then go over to our MOU. So you can see here, let's see, I'm having troubles. Part one is just that we are memorializing some changes that we made early in the year where we reclassified a bunch of folks. Part two really is what we're talking about. These are the classifications, and you can see where they currently are placed on the salary schedule. Those are ranges. And then the proposed range that we are proposing that they would move. They wouldn't have any of their duties, wouldn't change. They just move on the salary schedule. And then finally, in an effort to just have everyone advance a step increase on the same day, we're agreeing that everyone moves up on July 1st annually. So everyone has the same anniversary date for step increases. And that's it. And I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Or a motion?
Okay, I'll do another one. I move that we approve the ratification of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Service Employees International Union and Albany Unified School District.
I'll second that.
Student Trustee Dana?
Yes.
Trustee Lyra is absent. One moment. Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Vice President Duran is absent. President Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Boyd?
Yes.
Trustee Davidson?
Yes.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. The ratification passes unanimously, and very glad to see some folks getting a raise. And now we move to our last item for tonight, also review and action the comprehensive school safety plans.
And that would go over to our executive director.
Sorry, there was a hand up and I don't.
Oh, shoot.
I don't know if it was on the last one. Sorry.
Yep, probably. Thank you. All right, I'm going to open public comment. Sorry about that. I thought I had my eye on that window. Go ahead. Oops, I've lost your name. Angel, I think.
This is Angela Thomas. I am the
Angela.
SEIU rep, and all I wanted to say was thank you. I wanted to be here. This has been in the works since the last administration. And you have to hear it from me. But when I tell my members, even when they got the bonus for COVID last year, they were in tears. So if you think this doesn't matter and it doesn't count, I needed to be here to let you know that it does tremendously. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for not seeing your hand up earlier. Thank you, and thank you to your members for everything they do. And now we will move to item 14C, comprehensive school safety plans.
As noted earlier, our executive director, Alexia Ritchie, will be facilitating this agenda item.
Thank you, Superintendent Wells and President Hinckley, board members, and the community who's with us tonight to help us focus on school site safety. Just a little background. We do have educational codes in California that require all school sites to develop a comprehensive school safety plan. So tonight we're going to be presenting these plans to you in document form. However, what's going to be critical is to understand that this is simply one component of school safety procedures that are carried out and carried through each one of our school sites yearly, daily, if you could. We also wanted to emphasize that in addition to this particular comprehensive school safety plan, all of our principals and administrators and staff members and students participate in drills, in yearly training, in resourcing written policies and flip books for emergency situations in schools. The collaboration with our city disaster resources, including police and fire, are again critical elements to making sure that our students and our community is safe at all of our schools. This document, the Comprehensive Safety Plan, will include issues related to disaster preparedness and emergencies such as bigger ones like earthquakes and fires and such. But it also encompasses really the life of a student at our schools. For example, discipline and other procedures that also need to be implemented, sometimes on a daily basis. I'm honored to be joined today by a few folks. I'd like to introduce them. In an effort to modernize and standardize and update our site safety plans, the Board of Education agreed to contract with our TRI Tri-Group. Our consultant, Hank Morton, is joining us today. Tri-Group, Hank Morton, came for district planning and site visits in January and February of 2022, met with various entities at the district level, was there to gather information and really start the plan development process. And so I would like to introduce Hank Morton, who will be joining me today in my presentation and for our question and answer session. But I'd also really like to reintroduce and let you all know that we have some principals joining us. We have an assistant principal, I believe, joining us tonight because they took the lead on authoring and making sure that the comprehensive school safety plans mattered to their school sites. Again, it was part of the repertoire of emergency preparedness for all school sites. But Principal McNally is with us, Assistant Principal Floresca is with us, and I believe I have Principal Reineuler with us. They were all the lead authors on their portions of the comprehensive school safety plans, and will be here to help answer any questions that we might have. With that, I'd like to, again, reintroduce Hank Morton from the TRI Tri Group, who, again, took the lead on the consulting with each one of our school sites. He'll walk you through the components of those plans now. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I just want to make sure you can hear me okay. Yeah? Okay. Great. So, thank you again for the opportunity to have a chance to collaborate this. It's been a great opportunity, basically having this partnership through the second phase of the work through the school district. I fully enjoyed working with all the school principals, going on site and actually learning more about your schools just on the very surface level. But basically what we had tried to accomplish here is addressing this overwhelming landscape that you all have done such a great job in with the pandemic. And, I know Alexia and I have talked about this, that everybody has done just an incredible job, that these type of plans, they take generally a good 8 to 12 months to, go over this type of detail and work them out. And everybody accomplished this goal in less than 4 months. Granted, there's revisions to it, as they are with these type of documents because they become live documents. So in this second phase of the work, what we did was I went on site, introduced myself, walked through, and I appreciated the time of everybody walking through their sites with me, sitting down, trying to get a better feel of the boots on the ground, because you're the people that live and work in this environment. So I wanted to make sure I had a little bit better of an understanding. From there, I asked an update of their existing comprehensive school safety plans. Granted, just like every school district, some of them were behind because we haven't been in session for 2 years. But they were very good plans. Again, kudos, much better than a lot of school districts that I've worked with. So this phase of the work was to help get the school district with a consistent document for the comprehensive school safety plans, because there were a lot of different versions of it. And that's very consistent. And I'll reiterate this, there is nothing that says that you can't have different versions. It's just best practices to have something that's a consistent document because of the transition from school to school, role to role, especially when somebody, like Deborah is coming from principal up into another position. So it really helps with that transition, right? And big props again to, Liz working with me diligently on this, and Kat, thank you so much for all your work. I mean, I know it takes a lot. Darren, phenomenal work at the high school. You were very overwhelmed with a lot going on, and you took a lot of your time with me. So thank you very much. So basically what we did was Peter Parenti helped work with me on this project as well, because he's the VP of our company. And what we did was we helped design or used a template that has been utilized in several school districts, to include Kern County, Los Angeles has used it, Hayward has used it, it's been adopted there. It's been in play for about probably 3 to 4 years now, and it works very well. it was determined to basically designed to be a one-stop shop. Granted, it was very comprehensive. It comes out to be about 150 to 160 pages, but that's because certain things were in there that, again, made it a one-stop shop. We've since decreased those to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And basically what it has is we got the updated information from the existing comprehensive school safety plans from each site. We put that at the front of the document, right after the table of contents, which is a quick link table of contents as well. It made it very user-friendly. That is most of the school plans, the comprehensive school safety plans at the front and center of the document. Then it goes into the section that can be redacted, meaning your tactical plans, things that should not be visible to the public for obvious reasons. We all understand that. And it's under that, the government code, 6254, I believe it is. It's stated right at the top of the plans. So then after a couple of reviews and some really good critical review by board president and others, again, thank you for that critical review, because it really helps to have that overall holistic lens and all the work that everybody else has done. Once received the comprehensive school safety plans, we put it into a Google Documents format, which was requested by the school district, because that's the document that you use. I made suggestions and comments in the sidebars of things that you can add to it. Then once that was done, I reviewed it one last time and sent it back to the site administrators to do their critical review and work with their school site safety committees or school site safety teams before sending them off to Frank and Alexia that previously approved this template because of its use. What it does is it really helps align the entire school district with a very similar and consistent document. Granted, there's different information in it from the elementary to the middle school and up to the high school for obvious reasons. And what it does is it aligns with their emergency operations plan. What that will then do is, as you noticed, and again, I'll appreciate the feedback and feel be happy to engage in those questions, is what it does is it keeps sections that are highlighted that focus on what you have to address year after year after year. So that way it becomes, granted, there was harder work now, but we work harder right now so we can work smarter later on down the road, right? So now it becomes, when you get to it next year, we address those highlighted areas and update them with the applicable information. And there's no rewriting of plans, with the exception of some obvious things that may have to be updated based on some previous conversations and maybe even new policies and procedures, as well as the latest practices that are out in the field. There were certain things that came up that were addressed, even like the pandemic. We're not reinventing the wheel. You use the existing pandemic plans. Nothing changes from that. You can utilize ac.gov specifically for the very fluid information that comes from the County Department of Education for COVID-related issues that helps with your screening, et cetera. The redacted component of the plans that are in the back, they have come directly from the emergency operations plan. I didn't write those. They basically came from either your district and through the Safe Havens International report. We basically provided some feedback for some compliance and non-compliance items. And then those were, that information was taken directly from the EOP and put into the back of the comprehensive school safety plans, in addition to very site-specific. Like what Darren sent me, they have a very specific lockdown procedure. They talk about run, hide, fight, very well detailed. That information was put in there, so it was very site-specific, which is recommended by the California Department of Education. So I know that basically after this, Alexia has taken the documents and put them onto, I believe, the website. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That is available to the public, which it should be, transparency, as well as instills that really high level of confidence that people now, your entire school community will have a much higher level of respect and knowing that you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and especially with the anxiety of what we've had to deal with today, not only because of what happened at Robb Elementary, but also what you guys talked about, what happened to your middle school student, right? So tensions are a little bit high. There's going to be, questions asked for a long period of time in the wake of what happened today and in the last 2 weeks. So I really appreciate Brian for bringing that up earlier. Thank you very much for that. Before we open it up, I think this is such a necessary field. I'm not going to continue to go down the soapbox, but one of my mission statement is I'm okay with not knowing how many lives we save by doing proper, effective emergency preparedness training. I'm absolutely okay with that. That helps me sleep at night. The stuff that happens tonight, just like President Hinckley said, I'm going to lose some sleep. My brain is just constantly going right now. So we always want to improve. We always want to prevent if possible, but we know that we can't prevent everything. So it's a matter of mitigating things. So these plans are a really good starting point to build upon. They are live documents. They are not go-to documents in the event of a critical incident. We talked about this earlier, those flip charts. If you need that muscle memory type of thing to get that going in the event, during the event, that's a great thing to have, but please make sure that all of your staff are familiar with this guideline. Take the time to read it and understand your roles and responsibilities, especially coming at the district level when you have to implement the incident command system or at the higher level of command. So the other thing that I'll just kind of close my component of it in before questions is I'm a firm believer that this type of work, this type of having effective emergency preparedness, having somebody like us come in, it's never going to be a money maker, but it's absolutely going to be a money saver and a lifesaver because it's all about mitigation. That is your return on your investment. Unfortunately, we can't make money off of this. There's no reason we should, but it's knowing that we have built that confidence with effective training. And remember, carrying out the plans is key. Don't just let this plan be a digital weight on your computer or a paper weight in a binder that's sitting on your desktop. We need to carry out the plan once it's adopted and approved and go into the next phases of training, like doing site security vulnerability assessments, doing lockdown training, doing active threat training. It's not just active shooter. There's many things that come up, right? And then carrying that into a high priority for the school district is reunification training, which is, a big wheelhouse of mine. And that's one of my passions. So again, I appreciate all of your time. I'm going to go ahead and maybe defer over to Alexia again, and then we'll open it up to see if I can answer any questions that you may have and any concerns. Please, that's what we're here for.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hank. I really appreciate your time and your energy and efforts at our school sites. And just to clarify, as soon as the plans are approved by the Board of Education, then they will be posted to our website with links to the individual school sites as well. And so with that, we would like to submit our recommendation to approve the comprehensive school safety plans for Albany High School in McGregor, for Albany Middle School, for Cornell, and for Ocean View. The Marin Elementary School Safety Plan is embedded in their host schools at this point, but next year they will also be producing their own comprehensive school safety plan. Thank you. President Hinckley.
Great, thank you so much. And thanks for getting this all moved forward. We missed a couple of years because of the pandemic. We were keeping kids safe in a different way. So I guess I just wanted to make a comment about what So I understand this is, we're seeing this as a sort of living document. So I just wanted to speak to, I guess, what that means when I think about that we're voting to approve it, but it's also going to be changing. And just, there aren't that many folks still hanging with us here, but just for the public, there's sort of two pieces of this. One is a much more detailed, what actually happens in an emergency, information that we don't share with the public, that the board does review and has discussed earlier this evening as part of closed session. And that isn't information that the public would get. So, and I understand, I think the way you describe this part of the plan as sort of something for the public to see and understand that we have this overall emergency plan, but it's not what people are using to figure out what to do. And so the piece that kind of, speaks to me in the plans that I think is still an aspiration for us is this idea of some public process for developing the plans. So I'll just say my name is on there as being on a public safety committee, which I am not at the high school. So I think for most of the sites, the sort of public safety review, presenting the plans to the public, asking folks, students, parents, or whomever, what should go in this plan hasn't happened yet. But I think for me, that's an important goal because I do think, students, first of all, know what they feel safe and not safe about. So I think it would be great if we are at the tail end of COVID to sort of use the next couple of years as we get new sites coming online to really take seriously that part of the plan that we do develop. We use our site councils much more proactively to work on a process to develop safety plans so that these are really more reflective of some meaningful input. So I'm happy to approve the plans as they are with the understanding that there's some way to go to sort of continue to make them more robust. And I guess just a couple of things that have come up in discussions about the elements that I think people wanted to talk about were, obviously we've had a couple of incidents of students not on school property, but having experiences that we don't want them to be having on their way to school. And so that's a piece that I think, as somebody has said in a different context, would require some partnership with the city, but I'm sure that families would like to see us having some conversations about that. And then we've talked about the sort of bathroom situation, which I think looks different at different grade levels. And sort of this is not just about physical safety, but also about how we identify students that we're concerned about, how we educate our students about to make good decisions around drugs and alcohol and other things they may confront in life. So I think seeing some more explanation of that our families can use to better understand what we're doing in that regard. All of those, as if I know those pieces are going to happen in the future, then I'm happy to see this process beginning to move forward. I don't know if other board members want to comment on or ask questions.
If I can add one comment to that, just because I know that this came up a couple of times and it is of concern. To build upon the documents that we have, they're always going to be built upon, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of this, is to come up with a better document every year. But specifically what you're talking about is the to and from, the ingress and egress, which is a mandatory component of the comprehensive school safety plan. That's where we can address a lot of these things, that to and from. And again, it has to do about education, training, community awareness. Brian talked a lot about that. So again, thank you for that. But that's where that can be built upon, and we can work together to accomplish that goal.
Great, thank you. I do remember from our presentation 3 years ago on this, the consultant reminded us that even though we think a lot about obviously every day, but especially today, things like school shootings, that the number one cause of fatalities in schools is traffic, not anything else. And so I would appreciate having that piece added in, because we've talked quite a bit about it in different meetings, some of the dangers associated with some of our pickup and drop off areas, and now concerns about some of our schools being near places where they might be vulnerable to people wandering around unobserved and harassing our students or worse. Principal Reineuler. You're muted.
Sorry. I appreciate the comment about partnering with the city. One thing that, well, first of all, I just want to thank Hank for his guidance on this. Every step of the way, I felt like he was, emailing me questions. We were back and forth, and it really felt like a very collaborative process. And we did spend time with our site council and with our safety team at Cornell. So I think that was collaborative in some instances, at least at Cornell. One thing that came up is the next step, I think, is collaborating with the city for where do we go in the event that we need to leave the site. And we started to brainstorm it, and we couldn't really figure it out, because we would say, oh, we could go to Ocean View, but wait a second, Ocean View is going to go to Ocean View. Oh, wait, maybe Ocean View should go to the soccer field and we go to Ocean View, because then we'd both be traveling the same amount of space. Or who needs to go down to Buchanan? And should we go under the BART tracks? Like all of these different possibilities. If in the event that we need to evacuate the site, we need to know where we're going. And I think that does need to be combined with the city. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, I can't speak to all of the site processes. That's a really great point, and reminds me of one way the city has brought this up too, is we're such a small community, and our school buildings are our largest buildings, and some of them are our most resilient buildings now that we're starting to rebuild them. And so the city kind of has its own line of thinking about where it might send people in an emergency in which people needed structures to go to. And so I think having all of those conversations so that we're all clear about who goes where in various scenarios would be great. I had not thought of that. So we'll figure out how to make those conversations begin to happen.
If I could, President Hinckley, that's actually one of the phases of work that we would like to have some support on, which is a reunification plan for all district sites. And that would include, of course, our preschool, Albany Children's Center, as well as the pool, food services, and the district office. And so I am looking forward to that next phase of work, or at least supporting Director Brill as she takes that on next year. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
One thing to kind of close out, and I'll be very, very brief. One of my mentors, Gary Sigrist, he's out of Ohio. We're a strong believer, and we've been dealing with school shootings for quite some time, doing this for 25 years in school safety and workplace safety. When we have these type of drills, these type of plans, and they're carried out effectively, continually over time so that they don't become perishable, that's going to be key, right? Is over time, especially in the wake of Robb Elementary, Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, etc., and the list goes on, is we want to instill confidence, not fear. So we don't want to be the ambulance chaser in the wake of another school shooting. They're going to come. They're happening every week, 2 or 3 times a week. So that's the big thing, is the message needs to be delivered in the right way, top down, bottom up, right? Is instill confidence. And that's what you're doing right now by approving these plans, being transparent with your entire school community, and then taking the next steps. But we come up with the next steps that are ideal for Albany, not any other school district, but it is important to work with your sister communities around you, the other school districts, and collaborate with what they have, because in a big incident, there's a lot of mutual aid. Your reunification may be at another city, depending on what you are dealing with, because you may not have a designated reunification zone. I've actually had talks with the chief about this, that, you know, and we're collaborating ongoing, which is stuff that we'll bring up later in the future, hopefully, about reunification, et cetera. So again, that message is to go out, is instilling confidence, not fear, because then everybody learns better and you all teach better, plain and simple.
Great, thank you for that. All right, so this isn't a review and action item, so we do need a motion to approve the plans. Does anyone want to see this title on the screen? There you go.
Yeah, if you could bring the title back up, then I could bring a motion. I move that we approve the comprehensive school safety plans.
Second.
Student trustee Dana?
Yes.
Student trustee Lyra is absent. Excuse me. President Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Boyd?
Yes.
Trustee Davidson?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
And Vice President Duran is absent for the record.
Great. The comprehensive school safety plans are passed unanimously and will now be available on our website, and look forward to the next steps next year. Thank you, Mr. Morton, for all of your work, and to Executive Director Ritchie, soon to be ex-Executive Director Ritchie. And the pom-poms have disappeared from my screen. Thank you for all the work that you put into doing this. It's a big task when it's been, when we've had COVID and then they sat there for a while. So thank you for doing that. And with that, we are on to future agenda items. Oh, and thank you also to the principals for coming. Sorry about that. Yeah, Trustee Doss.
Yeah, so I talked about this in a previous meeting that we had earlier today. I'm hoping that we could have some time put on the agenda to go into more detail about the plans that were presented earlier today, and have an opportunity to talk more about it, provide feedback, ask additional questions in a board setting versus just like emails and kind of one-off. I think it would be more productive if we could talk about it, as a board, as a whole, versus one-offs, because I think that makes it more difficult to kind of come together on decision making and move things forward.
Okay. I think I might have to let Superintendent Wells respond to that. They are scheduled to be approved on the 14th, so, or to come to us. I shouldn't say scheduled to be approved. They're scheduled to come before us on the consent calendar on the 14th, so.
Yeah, I think we would all like to have more time. I think in the interim, as you go through reading all of them, if you could generate some questions so that staff and I can respond, that might be helpful. And having something come up in the fall, I think is a good idea to kind of remind people our annual plan going forward as we open the school in the fall. Might be something definitely doable.
And they do, as the principals did all that work to align them with the LCAP, and we do have 2 meetings to discuss the LCAP, one on the 14th and one on the 28th. So those will be many of the same action items built into the plan. So that would be another opportunity to ask questions about them in a board meeting.
And I think, Trustee Dawson, you're onto something, because after all of it is our number one goal. And so I think what I'm hearing is that you want to have a lot of time to have some deep dive like discussions. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Got it.
Any other agenda items? All right, we do have one public comment.
Oops, I'm getting there. Sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
All right, go ahead, Jeremiah.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremiah, and I'm going to request a future agenda item is going to be support for school zones to protect our students, something I've been working on for over 10 years because the city of Albany does not have school zones in the municipal code book. And it's actually one of 2 cities in the entire Bay Area that does not have school zones. That's Albany and El Cerrito. Berkeley has school zones. If you look up in the index or the glossary in their municipal code book for school zones, there's pages of it. Slower traffic, no drugs and alcohol. That's already exists, but it's in the municipal code book, and Albany sadly doesn't have it. So there's no support for crossing guards. There's no money or grants for the city of Albany to get the state school zone grant. Every single city that has school zones written in the municipal code book gets the same amount, and it's $100,000. Whether it's San Francisco, Orinda, Oakland, small city like Albany, it's the same amount. So with that school zone grant, it'll pay for crossing guards, to repaint and restripe the crosswalks in front of the schools and put up more signs. So I just want to request a discussion for school zones. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That is our meeting. So we are adjourned. Our next regular board meeting is Tuesday, June 10th? My 14th, sorry.
14th.
All right, miscounts. I get thrown off by the extra week. So everyone have a great rest of the week, and thank you. Good night. Oh, there's one last pom-pom.
Recording stopped.
Bye, Ann.